Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the free astrotheology course. I am Dr. Yasafa from Zion Law School. Let's pick it up, y'all. Assalamu alaikum, shalawama, Islam to all the Moors. I self-law and master, if that's new to you. Um, let's do it. Let's do it. So we left off on page 168 in The Celestial Ship of the North, Volume 1 by Emma Valencia Straight Time, y'all. So let's pick it up. Uh, I think we stopped. I'll start at the beginning of the paragraph. So let's do it. I think I have about an hour and a half, so we have to cover a lot of material. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, these gods of the circle, and man, let me see if I was just looking at something about circles, and I had wished I had included this in the classes that I did on the original of the original of the origin of the concept of God or something like that. So I'm gonna give you guys a reference. If we have a chance, I'll come back to it. So this is the Astrology of the Old Testament or the Lost Word Regained, published in 1892 by Carl Anderson. If you turn over to page uh, today, we're going to deal with primarily page 199, page 200, perhaps page 201. I'm going to show you all, if we can get to 201, I'm going to show you some of the defamation that the Solarites have done embedded in the solar zodiac mythology. Y'all just wait until you see it. Just wait I've covered it before, uh, but I'm going to talk about a different aspect of it that takes you back to the circumpolar zodiac, the Great Mother Typhoon, right? I said, but anyway, page 203. So if you want to know more about the circle, go to page 203. So I may do a video where I cover that again soon. If I can get to it today, I will. So the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, in the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, these gods of and by the way, I finally realized. I thought, man, what's going on with me lately? I've been doing an herbal cleanse, and so that herbal cleanse has me uh, kind of like not in the same place I'm usually at, uh, and that would be because of course the cleanse, right? The toxins are coming out, so of course it can affect you. So I just finally realized this morning what was happening to me. But anyway, so y'all be patient. Um, Eventually I'll adjust. I'm gonna start drinking more water, and I'm gonna try to find some activated charcoal. Uh, Activated charcoal neutralizes toxins. We used to use it in the emergency room, so I have to find it. But you don't have to buy it over the counter. You can make your own charcoal, y'all, right? Because you can. Well, you can Google it. You can Google it. But anyway, let's get back to the story. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, these gods of the circle and of the quote unquote seven Alu, A-A-H, that's A. That's also what? The first pictograph in the ancient Ibaryath or ancient Phoenician script. So the Alu. So there's no U in the ancient Ibaryath, which is also, the script is also called the Canaanite Phoenician or Phoenician Canaanite, or some people call it Paleo Hebrew. But you have to remember there are three different eras of time, and each era has a different script for the same pictograph, but it has the same meaning, same symbology, and same cultural context or cultural significance. Okay, or a contribution to culture and meaning of text. Right. So there are a lot of people who focus a lot of time and energy on doing word studies, because during the word study you can get more information than what's in the dictionary or what they call lexicons, right? It's like hidden treasures there. All right. But it's not always a treasure because, like we have mentioned, like I've mentioned before, there's a lot of deceit and deception and extra stuff that have been thrown into the pot for conquest purposes. All right, y'all. So let's keep going. So these gods of the circle. So we already know that this is the solar period because they're talking about gods, right? During the Sabian period, it would not they wouldn't talk about gods. They talk about algebra, geometry, calculus, the different trigonometry. That's what the conversation would be about, and the natural laws that they discern from that. And whatever metaphors they use to teach it, to pass that knowledge on. Not only the natural laws, but the engineering concepts and things of that sort that Dr. Ben talked about. And I put the link to his video uh, in the community channel if y'all want to go back and watch that video. I'm so grateful for that video because that's how I came to understand what this author is talking about when she said our ancestors drew a boundary around that which was boundless and everything else, right? Dealing with circles. And it's just, I'm very grateful for that. So if Dr. Ben's family ever hears this, thank you. Your father was a great man in, in respect to his work that he did concerning Nubia, concerning the Sabian Moors before uh, anybody ever traveled down the Nile and built what everyone knows today as being Egypt, right? That's what I'm so appreciative for, because he preserved that. Not only preserved it, but he found it and got it. But of course, he got it. He himself says he got a lot of information from the Aboriginal uh, Kemetic people. So anyway, I'm off topic. Let's keep going. So, and of the seven Alu, so that points back to the thigh of the Great Mother. The thigh of the Great Mother Typhoon in the circumpolar zodiac. Uh, so, and the seven Alu were termed the quote unquote ancestors of light. So, if you're an ancestor of light, that means you are anterior to, as they like to say. You came before, or you are before light. So, what's before light? The darkness. What's the darkness? Well, the dark central sun that emits dark rays that are, in fact, the reality, that are, in fact, eternal and pure spirit. Everything that y'all associate with light and enlightenment and wisdom is a remix, a cheap knockoff Gucci, a cheap knockoff Louis Vuitton of the real thing, or the real McCoy, as they used to say. The real McCoy is the ancient darkness. Okay, central sun, the black sun, behind the sun that's emitting rather black rays of light that reflect off of the heavenly bodies or the stars, etc. Whatever the heavenly bodies are, they're reflecting black rays. And then that black ray, when it reflects, it appears to be what we call sunlight. It appears to be what we call sunlight, which is not eternal and which is an illusion or Maya, as it were. So all solar deities are deities representing this reflected light that is not the real McCoy. These are the gods that Prophet Noble Drew Ali told us to turn away from. He said, "All right." He said, our ancient mothers and fathers never knew anything about these gods. Sabian Moors never knew anything about these gods. These gods are the creation. The It's not even the creation. It's the remix and uh, degrading. I don't even know. I don't use negative vocabulary. Maybe I ought to look up some negative. The defamation and degrading of the Great Mother Typhoon and her son Sit the Dog Star. Everything involved, all aspects of the circumpolar zodiac that is Sabian, that happened before there ever was an Egypt on the Nile. Y'all understand? Egypt on the Nile was built by Solarites, or if not, let me not say that, not built by Solarites, but made famous. It is famous for the Solarites, the pharaohs, and the solar zodiac, the solar religions. This is what it's famous for. Now, did they build it? No. The monuments, those huge megalithic monuments, was there way before 4500 BCE when the Solarites came to power. Okay, they were there way before that. They just, from what it appears to be, they took it over. Right? They took it over. Okay, y'all. Anyway, so let's continue. So these seven Alu were termed the quote unquote ancestors of light. That has to be the ancient darkness. And the ancient darkness, of course, is the Great Mother Typhoon. And of course, her sons. The Great Mother Typhoon is represented by the thigh of the Great Bear, today called the Big Dipper, made up of seven stars. And these seven stars are referred to as the seven sons, the seven sailors, the seven Alu. The Hebrew Elohim created light. Now, the Elohim are those seven stars that make up the Big Dipper, uh, uh, mythologized into gods. Okay? All right? All right. So the Hebrew Elohim created light. In Genesis, we read, quote unquote, let there be light. Now, we read on page 9, was it page 9 of this book? What the Great Mother said? Page 9. A superabundance of darkness metaphysically is light. Darkness adopted illumination in order to make itself visible. That was on page 9. In Genesis, we read again, quote unquote, let there be light. And there was light, which indicates that the seven were the primal light bringers of the first creation. So we know that there is no first creation. There is no such thing as a creation except for the hybrids, right? Because everything else is supposed to be here and is eternal. Tell me I'm lying. Why? The second law of thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Energy is consciousness. Energy is the Hermetic law of mentalism. Energy is consciousness, the Hermetic law of mentalism. Consciousness, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. This is why the Great Mother is called the former and transformer, the producer of something in the physical plane from consciousness, or in other words, condensations of consciousness. Condensations of consciousness. Now, I haven't fully worked this out, y'all, but this is an issue. Y'all see this pen? This could represent linear time, like, for example, time 0 to, let's say, 10,000 years. Okay, or we can say this pen's 0 to 1 all the way up to 10,000 years, linear time. But now remember, we're dealing with circles. That's why I wanted to go back with that. Circles, our ancestors drew a circle around that which was boundless, or boundary around that which was boundless, and it was what, y'all? Curved. Let me go back to you. We'll take you back. Page 167, second paragraph down. It reads here. It reads this. The Egyptian word for create. Now remember, we're dealing with create, right? What did it say here? Those seven Elohim were the primal light bringers of the first creation. Well, we know that they're talking about a formation and transformation, production and reproduction, incarnation and recarnation, condensation of consciousness. And we know that whole mechanism and process, right? Or procedure. So let's go back to page 166. The Egyptian word for create is Ker-at. Y'all remember we went through this? K-E-R-A-T. Ker means a curve. K-E-R means a curve. So when you think about a curve, you should think about the circumference or the edge of the circle. And at, see, K-E-R, Ker-at, K-E-R-A-T. At means a circle. So a curved circle. Y'all see it? A 360-degree circle as opposed to a squared circle. Y'all get it? And quote, by the circle of time was curved. So time is curved. Time is curved. Carved by the circle of time was curved. Carved, like somebody carving a turkey or carving a piece of artwork, and created the heaven of symbolism. That's taking us right back to where we talked about our ancestors drew a boundary around that which was boundless. Do y'all remember that? And that first circle that the celestial ship of the north, which is the thigh of the great bear, which represents the great mother typhoon, this is why she is called the mother of time, the mother of space and time, the mother of all things that are, and that could ever be, and that ever have been. Okay, everybody got that? So time is circular, time is curved. So now what I was thinking, is that what is meant? Is what we to understand when we say time is cyclical? Well, what's a cycle? Well, you go to point A, B, C, D, blah, 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 back to A again. It's a cycle, right? Or you go from a repetitive pattern That's a cycle, like a helical rising, Sirius, right? Every year, right before the flooding of the Nile, as it goes, as the story goes, Sirius, set the dark star, you see it, a helical rising, signaling the upcoming flood of the Nile. So what I was thinking is, this time is not so much, it's that, it's the celestial signals of seasons, but it's also, and this may be hard for some people to deal with, it's also the opposite of linear time, where you have to start from zero, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way to, remember, 0 to 10,000 years, where you got to go from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4, continue all the way up to 10,000. You got to go through that whole, you got to walk this whole path, walk that whole line, linear time. But circular time would be the opposite of that. Why? Because of the Hermetic law of polarity, the law of opposites. That's where I'm working from. So the opposite of that is that at 0, you can get to 10,000. At 0 or at 1, you can get to 10,000. At 1, you can get to 5,000. You can get anywhere at any time. Y'all understand? Well, then the question becomes, how is that possible? How is that possible? Well, one reason why you're asking that question is because this is new to you. It's goes against everything we have been uh, indoctrinated. Y'all don't like that word, educated to believe. We've been educated to believe in linear time. So so A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's not the case. If time is carved, okay, that's not the case. It's obvious because of the law of polarity. All right, y'all. Meaning to say what? Meaning to say that through the workshop of your mind, you can curve time, you can bend time. So, for example, I'm going to give you an example maybe everyone can relate to. Say you want to have $1 million in fiat notes, or let's say you want to have uh, the equivalent of $1 million in constitutional money, and you don't know where you're going to get it and how you're going to get it. You're thinking about who's going to give it to you, how, the how, where it might come from, how long it's going to take, the normal stuff, right? Because you're dealing with linear time, and you're dealing with the left hemisphere of the brain, not the right in this case, right? Because if you're dealing with the right hemisphere of the brain, you'd be dealing with imagination, which is timeless and boundless. Circular. It is not limited by time or space. In other words, what I'm saying, through the workshop of the mind and the intentional use of the balanced hemispheres, relaxed and at peace, okay? Especially if you're in that transitional state between awakeness and sleep, or you're just waking up and you're in that state, all right? So this is the most powerful state. And you're able to intentionally feel the feelings that you want to feel. Imagine yourself doing all the things that you would do uh, if you had the mindset, not if, but having the mindset of your ancient foremothers and forefathers. Why do I say that? Because our ancient foremothers and forefathers, they had endless wealth. I'm not making it up. It's in the books. They had endless wealth. Nobody was robbing, stealing, and cheating. They had peace of mind and freedom. A global brotherhood is right here in the books. Okay, y'all? All right. So you're able to go back to the mindset of your ancient foremothers and forefathers and be infinitely wealthy and be royal. Or like we used to say when I was in high school, be the shit. And you know it and are not ashamed of it because that's a whole Christian thing. That's a whole religious thing. So you can be the shit and not be arrogant and ugly. It's called being royal. It's called being graceful and generous, right? So that's what it is. So when you change the way you see yourself from from who you are now, who you think you are because you are not, you're the product of the hermet or of the abuse, the predatory use of the hermetic law of gender. That is not you. You have been programmed. Niggas, spics, whatever. And this has nothing to do with complexion, y'all. I'm just talking about that because that's what I know most. I don't want to talk about that too much because you know who you is better than I do. I don't know you. But my point is this. My point is this. When you step into the shoes, the mindset of the ancient foremothers and forefathers, the Sabian Moors, before all of the solar religion and the histories associated with these solar religions, and their patriarchs. Forget about all of that. Before it even existed, who were your ancestors? Canaanites, Moabites, Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, right? In other words, the aboriginal or autochthonous men and women of planet Earth before these solar religions ever even came on the scene, before the solar zodiac came on the scene, we were and we still are. You understand? So it is that mindset that I'm talking about. There was no Mithraism, there was no Christianity, there was no Hebrew Israelitism, there was none of that. There was no Abraham, there was no Jacob. In fact, Jesus says, before Abraham, I am, or I was. Maybe it was I was or I am. I don't remember which expression. But he was saying that he was older than Abraham. And I already explained to y'all what the astrological solution to that a few classes ago. So when we go into the workshop of the mind and we have taken on or returned to the mindset of our ancient foremothers and forefathers, now we are royalty, not just some cool talk kings and queens and ancient black gods and all of that foolishness. No, I'm talking about this is who you are, this is who you know you are, and this is how you live your life. More importantly than that, this is how you think. You think wealthy, you think royally, you think in a spirit of cooperation, in a spirit of cooperation, and not the terrible mindset that a lot of our people have, unfortunately. Especially those who use this kind of information that we're going through right now for personal gain, or no, let's call it personal gain. It could be for finance. It could be to feel good and powerful, to lead people, but they have bad motives. A lot, unfortunately. But that's neither here nor there. So this is how to bend time. Go into the workshop of the mind, being who you are. Like Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, Moors, if I can just get you to be yourself. In other words, just be yourself. Who are you? Well, we are our ancient foremothers and forefathers, without a doubt or contradiction. We are they. Return to the mindset of your ancient foremothers and forefathers. That means know that you are the supreme beings, the Elohim on this earth, and that you are royal, and that all wealth is yours by inheritance. And you know it and you feel it because it is who you are. You are aligned with nature. You are aligned with the Hermetic law of mentalism, consciousness. So when you enter into the workshop of the mind and you visualize and you imagine and you feel and you create, but let me clarify what I mean so y'all understand. Let me say it in language y'all understand. You pretend. But see, what you don't know is that you're pretending now because it's not who you are. When you go into the darkness, into the workshop of the mind, close your eyes, turn off the lights. You'll realize that it's pitch black. You're in the darkness, right? You are in the darkness. So when you learn how to manage, to relax and balance out your left and right brain hemispheres to about 10 cycles per second, and how to be who you are and enjoy it and see, imagine, what y'all might call pretending. But that's the reality. That's the reality. And it is not bounded by space and time. In other words, you can, I can, we can condense consciousness into physical realities. Okay? And I know because I'm able to do it. Am I perfect at it? No. Do I have greater success? Sometimes, and less success? Sometimes, yes. Yes. But imagine, y'all, and this is what I've been wanting to talk to people about, especially you, Consul General Lamont Maurice L. If y'all know him, get the video to him. This is the way to get things done, through the workshop of the mind, and to have several people involved in it, because we have a lot of people. We have a lot of beings who are doing the same thing, and the mind power multiplies. So two minds might be 10 times or 100 times more powerful than just one. Y'all understand? But because we are orthogonous to this earth plane, our mind power is obviously stronger because we're at a higher vibration of consciousness than hybrids. That only makes sense, right? Because they're in their bloodline, they have the Neanderthal, right? That just makes sense. Okay. Even the study that was done during the Clinton administration about the intelligence genes. Y'all remember that? Dr. Gabriel Oyibo, the greatest scientist who ever lived, and I really mean that. The author of Gaga, I think it's called God Almighty Grand Unified Theorem, not theory. It's proven mathematically. Y'all go check this. Check him out. Search him on YouTube. Buy his book. Um, I think it's a 2-volume work. I haven't thought about Gaga in many years. But y'all Google search him because the man, he's a great scientist. Um, but this is what we need to do as a people, and then we can create, craft the reality, the global situation that we want. And it would be easier and faster if we could just work together. I don't want anything from anybody, but I need an ajaza. It would be better if someone provided the ajaza than me doing it myself, because that demonstrates a weak nation and an unorganized nation, and a nation that doesn't work together, a nation of people, a family, a bloodline, rather, that won't work together to better itself. But that's neither here or there. But the most effective way to do this, and the safest way to do it, is through the workshop of the mind, the proper use of the workshop of the mind. And it requires cooperation. It doesn't require any fiat. It doesn't require long meetings or anything like that. It just requires some planning and some shared and agreed upon goals and outcomes. And then doing these sessions together. It doesn't have to be in person. It doesn't even have to be in an online meeting. It could be in an online meeting, right? So people could feel some type of fellowship and togetherness, but it doesn't have to be. All right. But it is the more minds that come together, there is a geometric power. All right. So now, anyway. So let's move on. Let's move on, because I don't want to feel frustrated dealing with this. This is such a simple thing. It's so effective if you just try to use it. When I say you, I'm talking to everybody. These gods have no ability to help you, but the truth is that it will always harm you. Why? Because that's what the system is programmed to do. All of these minds, all of these minds, hybrids and dirty Moors, now and in the past, have come together in the workshop of the mind, because they do it, but they hid it from us. And they have crystallize the reality that they want. So you go pray into these gods and see what's going to happen to you. You're always going to get bit. You might, and I know this is true from personal experience. You're doing good, but in the end, bam. Every time you get going, bam. Again, bam. And it gets worse and worse. It's almost like, not almost like, but the way I experienced it was, it appeared to me that the universe was telling me, get out of these religions. Get away from these deities. I'm not kidding y'all. Punishment after punishment after punishment. Trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. Until it took me some 3 decades to leave that shit alone. All right? All right. So let's continue, y'all. Where am I? So the point is, is that time is curved. It's a curved circle. Time is a circle. Okay, now it's a circle. So now we have the circumference of the circle. Within the circle, that's the area, right? So we have the circumference of the circle and then the area. And then the radius is from the center of the circle to the circumference. There's the Ra, R-A, Ra, right? The solar deity, the sun in the center of the universe in the solar model, right, y'all? And then RA, right ascension, east gate, okay, east gate, Aries, the Lamb of God, and the solar deity is always the Lamb of God. Represented on a cross without the Virgin Mary in the east gate, represented as a cross, common Christian cross, with a literal lamb standing next to the cross. Before the man y'all called Jesus was depicted on that cross. Remember, East Gate, so no Virgin Mary. His mother wasn't there because Virgo is in the West, right? And the crucifixion in the West is depicted in Christian iconography as Jesus hanging on the cross and his mother, the Virgin Mary, next to him, representing the zodiac sign Virgo. And uh, often they'll have a picture of someone handing Jesus a cup of vinegar, representing September 29th, which is the end or the last day of winemaking season or the vintage season or vengeance. Vengeance is a technical word for winemaking, right? For winemaking. So if you try to make wine after September 29th, when the vitality, the vital energy from the sun is gone, it's only that grape juice is only good for making vinegar. It's no longer sweet. It's bitter. All right. That's the symbology. Now, so the point is that Ra becomes a solar deity. Savic Ra is a remix of Sut the dog star, who you are. Who you are. Sut, the only begotten son of the great mother Typhoon, who gets deified as Savic Ra in the solar zodiac system, who gets deified as the SON Son of God, right? And then the Great Mother Typhoon gets remixed and deified as the Father. So now you have the Father and the Son are one, right? So YHWH is the SUN Son, and JC, the Christ figure, is the SUN Son. This is why you see JC with the halo, right? And you see the sun with the sun rays, and you'll see the tetragrammaton inside of the sun. Okay? Now, since we're dealing with circular time, that means that who will do something? Who's going to give you that $1 million in constitutional gold or money? How it's going to happen? All these details that we relate to linear time, they're not applicable. How about that? That's probably hard to wrap your mind around. In other words, you can make things happen that look like magic. That look like magic. Don't believe me? Start working at it yourself. Okay, let's continue. Page. So that was. Let me show y'all this. I hope y'all can read that. All right. I want to get back to the text. Okay. So okay. All right. So back to page 168. 1 plus 6 is 7. plus 8 is 15. 1 plus 5 is 6. So, of course, 6 is masculine gender. 6, the line pointing up is the penis, and the circle below represents the testicle. Okay, but remember, 6 is 9. Keep that in mind. And remember, 10 is 9. We're going to get into this right now. I hope everyone sees how this is working out. All right, so let's continue. So in Genesis, we read, quote unquote, "Let there be light," and there was light, which indicates that the 7 were the primordial light bringers of the first creation, which was Sabian in origin. What did they just say? They said that the Aboriginal man, the rightful heirs to all land, all resources, all commerce, are the Aboriginal men and women, Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. That's the first, what does it say? The first origin. These were the first men formed. Man is thought made manifest from the soil. Now there's a second entity, and its origin is recorded in Genesis chapter 1, verse 25 and 26, I think. The Neanderthal, the Paleolithic caveman. Everyone see? The troglodyte nigger. This is the Yakub story, in my opinion. Yakub and his 12 feminine sciences. So Yakub is masculine, so you get the number 6. And his feminine co-scientists were Moabite women. What I mean by that is Aboriginal women. Remember, we're not dealing with the solar system yet. So you Hebrew Israelites don't get excited and mad and all of this stuff, because that wasn't even on the scene at this time. So now you have the women, which is a 9. The circle at the top of the 9 is the womb, and the line going down is the vaginal canal. Now you have 6-9, which has been defamed, made into some sexual thing, right, y'all? 6-9. If you say 6-9 now, people start thinking about oral sex. It's part of the defamation of the great mother Typhoon and her son, Sut, in the South Celestial Pole. Everybody see that? So now this is so 6 and 9 is the Hermetic law of gender. The Hermetic law of gender is the Holy Spirit, right? The feminine pole of it is the Holy Spirit. Okay. Now let's continue. Next sentence. Indeed, quote unquote, these generators, solar zodiac. Why? It's talking about generators, not a celestial matrix, which is the Sabian period, which is the great mother Typhoon, who has a womb. This generator is celestial in origin and remixed into what becomes the tetragrammaton, YHWH. These generators and ancestors of light. Now, let's stop right here. Again, generators, as a matter of fact, should I find it? Generators refers to the patriarchy. What page is that? And they're mixing terms, which is an author should not mix terms because it can confuse readers. So now I need to clarify this for y'all. Where is it? At one time I was going through this all the time because I liked this so much. Oh, I think she liked me. What? Yeah. At 10 today. You close at 10 today? All right, thanks, man. Dang. Seems like I need to get going. I need to start doing these lives earlier. What page was it? Was it page 24, y'all? Or 44, 43? Ah, no, that's not it. It's 23. I need to fold that over anyway. Oh, this, you know what? Maybe I'll read through this anyway. Yeah, I'm going to read this anyway, y'all, because this is talking about the genetrix. All right. So notice the play on the word. It goes from genetrix to generator. So this is page 22. 2 plus 2 is 4. Four corners, or the four stars that make up the dipper of the Big Dipper. So you get three stars in the handle, 4 stars in the dipper. 3 plus 7. 3 plus 4 is 7. 3 times 4 is 12. Y'all see that? See that? Plus the great mother is 13. Okay. Jesus and his apostles. Jesus is 1 plus the apostles 12. The Son and the 12 constellations 13. Y'all see that? All right. So let's look at this page 22, middle paragraph. The mythology of Israel, Isis, Ra, and El, the house of Yasharallah, begins as we see with the cult of Hova, Hovah. Y'all should look that up in a lexicon, the Strong's lexicon. Who was Eve? Wow, did y'all hear that? Hova was Eve, the Typhonian mother of Sut, also called Seth, Seth. See the defamation, right? The negative reputation of Seth. The serpent belongs to the serpent belongs to an early representation of the mother. Y'all see the defamation and libel of the serpent. The serpent originally was wonderful. This is the great mother typhoon, the serpent woman. So who are the serpent people? Now you know. And followed and followed the time when she was known by the type of the hippopotamus. Remember, circle 7, the circle is divided into 4 regions. One region is represented by the hippopotamus, which is the great mother, which represents water. This is where you get myrrh, right? Mermaid, Mary the mother of God, Marina, water, and then all the fish gods. And by the way, the 2 Pisces fish originally was the Great Mother Typhoon and then Set the Dog Star. Before it was 2, it was 1, but that's another story. We'll come back there. The serpent belongs to an earlier representation of the mother and followed the time when she was known only by the type of the hippopotamus and coincides with the change, with the change in Israel from the worship of the north and the stars. This is talking about what, y'all? When Moses took the people out of the Sabian or circumpolar zodiac and brought them into the solar zodiac. The whole, the whole situation with Sevic Ra. It's this time. Now let's continue. This coincides with the change in Israel from the worship of the north. This is the north celestial pole, circumpolar zodiac, and the stars, reckoning time and reality by the stars, right? Circle 7, clock of destiny. Natural law, don't harm anyone, don't steal. Workshop of the mind. To that instituted by Moses in the wilderness. This is this is the solar zodiac, okay? This is Aries, the ram's horn, and all of that. Remember, Moses had the serpent. The serpent represents the ecliptic and all of that. Remember, quote unquote. And the manna fed to the children of the wilderness. This manna is astrological knowledge, is symbolic of feminine reckoning and rule. That's the matriarchy. This is the Great Mother Typhoon. That's the matriarchy of the Sabian period of the solar of the circumpolar zodiac. Now listen, let's continue. And the angels' food supplied by the genetrix, the angels' food supplied by the genetrix. In other words, the Great Mother gave food. The genetrix, the celestial womb, right? The Ursa Major, Ursa Minor. Today, the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. All right. So the angels' food supplied by the genetrix from the gynoecium above to the children below. So, in other words, the Great Mother Typhoon in the North Celestial Pole, the celestial womb, the mother of all beginnings, of all times, of all formations of consciousness or condensations of consciousness into physical stuff, including man. All right. So, what does she do? She fed it to the children below. Man did eat angels' food. This is Psalms LXXV11, I rather, 25, verse 25, which was the bread of the mighty, capital M, meaning that celestial knowledge, which originated at this northern point. This is the celestial ship of the north, the circumpolar zodiac in the heavens. That knowledge was transmitted to them. The people decided to go build a golden calf. We were misled into believing that this golden calf was bull worship. But in fact, it was not. That golden calf represented Hathor. And then Hathor is a symbol of the Great Mother Typhoon, the circumpolar zodiac. The people wanted to stay in the mindset of their ancient foremothers and forefathers and those traditions, the circumpolar zodiac. Moses came down and he wasn't having it, according to the story. Now, don't get mad at me. I'm telling y'all the story. Don't worry about what I think. I'm not married to any story. I'm married to knowing what happened and who I am. All right. These stories don't hurt my feelings at all. I whether it's Jeremiah 8:8 or not, that's for you to decide, right? The serpent became one of the special symbols of this oldest of mothers. The two great truths of the Egyptians were said to be written with the serpent. Yeah, they were also given. They were also given. They were also given in the two characters of the gestator of the sign Pisces. Of the gestator. Did y'all hear that? They were also given in the two characters of the gestator of the sign Pisces and the virgin of the zodiacal sign Virgo. There you have it. Virgo becomes the Great Mother Typhoon, typical of gestation and maternity. She was the tree of life as well as the serpent of life. Y'all got that? The two great truths of the Egyptians were said to be written with the serpent. They were also given in the two characters of the gestator of the sign Pisces. The two Pisces. Okay, the two fish. All right. All right. So these two truths, mother and son, great mother Typhoon and her son Sip the Dog Star in the south. Now let me find where it's talking about. So there we saw the discussion about the genitrix, right? So let me find now the paragraph about the generator, how they craftily craft, how slick and sly they are. Why am I not remembering that page number? Yeah, that drives me nuts when I don't remember a page number because I can see it in my mind. I might have it folded over. That might be why I'm not seeing it. It might be one of these pages that are folded over. So we're gonna go through this page too again because that has to do with the topic. I know y'all can't see the page numbers. I'm talking out loud. I hope everyone is learning something and be patient. Genetrix. That's what I just went over that. Huh. All right. Thank you, sir. All right, y'all. Here we are. Here we are. Page 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. So y'all see we're dealing with 3, 6, and 9s, right? 3, 6, and 9s. And 12. Okay, this is the code of the law that C.M. Bay talked about. Y'all see that? This is page 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. This is middle paragraph. The original mother Typhoon, quote unquote, Lady of the Heavens, was mother of the male child known as Sut, who grew up to be her consort, to be her husband, and who eventually became his own father. Now, this is celestial, not fleshly. So, Sut marries his mother. In today's language, they have a baby. The baby child grows up. He has, uh, uh, he becomes Sut's father. How does that work? Right? That's crazy. It's not possible in the flesh. This is celestial. Okay. In other words, this is a story. Okay. Now let's continue. Mother of the male child known as Sut, who grew up to be her consort, her husband, and who eventually became his own father in the character of the generator. There we have it. In the character of the generator. So we see the author is mixing terms. Generator refers to the masculine or the patriarchy. Okay. Quote unquote, the oldest permutation known in theogony became apparent at this point, which is that of the son becoming his own father. Remember that, y'all. The son becomes his own father. Sut becomes his own father. And the mother being generated by the son. Sut becomes his own father. And then the mother being generated by the son. So Sut becomes his own father. He becomes his own father. So Sut has a baby. So that's Sut's son. So the father produces the mother. This is confusing, right? But this is saying that the father, Sut becomes his own father. So his own father produces the mother or generates the mother, rather. All right? becoming his own father, and the mother being generated by the son. End quote. That's taken from Madame Blavatsky, H.B. It is in this Typhonian religion that we first find the worship of the Virgin Mother and the fatherless child, the Great Mother Typhoon and her son Sut, which this is what C.M. Bay talks about, right, y'all? Okay. Which later found a home in Rome, so solar. But she came to be betrayed by them as a male virgin or maleless. Y'all hear that? Maleless means androgynous, right? To indicate male virgin or maleless, to indicate the beginning or creative power. Let me think about that. Maleless. Ah, maleless. I'm sorry. It does not mean androgynous. It means feminine. Okay, a male virgin or feminine. In other words, imagine the Hermetic law of gender without a feminine pole. That's not possible, right? Y'all see why this is an illusion? This is crazy. This is Maya. Or male is to indicate the beginning or creative power on the way toward the final fatherhood. In other words, they were destroying the memory of the Great Mother Typhoon and introducing the father. And people would no longer know about the Great Mother Typhoon. So it's like having the Hermetic law of gender with only a masculine pole, no extreme opposite end of the pole, which is feminine. Y'all see it? This, in other words, this is the introduction and domination, the predatory military use of the patriarchy or fatherhood. All right, y'all? It was Manu who said, the male virgin gave birth to the light. All mythical allegories of the heavens state that from herself the mother came first, and we just saw how that process is, how that process went. Now this is crazy, right? This is on page 3, and number 3, the number 3 is the first perfect number, which is something, one day we should do a lesson on. So I gotta go, y'all. The place is closed. I got here too late to really do anything meaningful. But I hope everyone learned something. We're going to pick this back up because there's a lot more. So I want y'all to think about why I'm using the image of the woman, the Moabite woman, the Moorish woman, the Aboriginal woman, excuse me, with the horse, with a horse. All right. So y'all think about that, and you will find out why in the next uh, video. Assalamu alaikum, shalom Islam to all the Moors.